This boy was mocked for selling water. Years later, he built a bottling company. He was 12, barefoot in worn shorts, hawking water cups for a few naira each. He had a worn canister strapped to his back, filled with water drawn from a kiosk several blocks away. Vendors sneered, "Only children sell water." Passers-by teased, "Go home, kid, don't clog the streets." Schoolmates laughed, "Working for pocket change while we study." He didn't stop. He didn't cry, he walked. He carried, he sold. He believed one day he'd build something bigger than ridicule. Day after day, sun beating on that tray, he learned the value of perseverance. He learned the pinch of shame when a customer spat at the price. He learned ingenuity, how to reuse cups, ration water, negotiate for leftover ice. He learned numbers even as the passers-by snickered. By age 14, he'd graduated to bottled water. Transparent bottles he bought discarded for pennies. Cleaned them, refilled them from kiosk water, sold them as pure water. Again mocked. Amateur, they said. Not hygienic. But he added lemon today, mint tomorrow, recycled cap rings, borrowed branding inks. Every insult was ink on trial. He kept going. One day, a local health inspector approached him, curious. He expected fines. Instead, she asked questions. Where do you source this water? How do you keep hygiene? He answered politely. She checked his sanitized bottles. She saw effort. She saw care. She saw dignity in the way he explained his process. Then she winked and said, "Keep it up, kid." That was the first seed of hope. He saved every penny. He skipped school lunches to reinvest. His mother cried sometimes, worrying he'd miss education. But he told her, "I'm building something, Mama." By 16, he had a small cart. Printed labels reading Aqua Rise Bottling, awareness in each cap seal. People who once mocked now bought from him quietly. Business grew. In one communal festival, he sold more water in one day than a small shop did in a week. That visibility caught attention. By 18, he won a small youth entrepreneurship grant. He rented a tiny warehouse corner. He registered his permit. He bought a used bottling machine. His name started appearing in local news. Teen Entrepreneur Redefines. Street water. He reused the old insults as pride. Selling water was nothing to mock. It was respect in liquidity. He stood in that sweltering warehouse at dawn, water bottles stacked like fragile hope around him. His own bottling machine salvaged, repaired, repurposed, hummed beneath flickering LEDs. He breathed in chlorine-clean dreams and recalled the street corner where he was once mocked for sweat, for effort, for ambition. That morning, he didn't just flip on a tap, he flipped the script. He'd secured a youth enterprise grant. He'd invested in a second-hand filtration unit. He'd labeled every bottle with care, stamped logos that said not street vendor but community brand. Now he had local retail partnerships. Corner shops in town sold his Aqua Rise bottles. Local school events requested bulk orders. Yet behind the growth lurked something darker: sabotage. It started subtly. Delivery routes messed up. Water trucks unloaded sand into one of his barrels. Rumor mills churned lies that his water came from a borehole near a dump. Clean water advocates posted fake alerts. Check this brand, it might be contaminated. All social media voices amplified hate. Aqua Rise sales dipped. Stocks of bottles went unsold. He showed up at the kiosk thirsty himself and asked, "Who's paying to ruin my name?" The kiosk manager blushed and whispered, "People you beat." He paced the warehouse as phishing emails landed. "We love your brand. Send us bank details to pay." That was the night he realized the mockers had become conspiracy architects. He paid bills through a friend's verified account and rebranded social media. That same nationalist youth who once teased him became his first paid intern. Because I believed in the water, even when I lied about it. He dug. He traced sabotage to a local bottling conglomerate that peddled branded bottles in neighborhoods he targeted. He traced clean water alerts to bots purchased through contract marketing. Local ShopX reps targeted his loyal points, offering rebates to ditch Aquarise. He pushed back. He delivered free water to clinics, donated bottles to fire victims, provided coded access for sanitation workers. The community watched. They rallied. By month's end, he hit break-even after the sabotage slump. He held a pop-up event, from street to source. He spoke publicly, voice steady. You mocked water, but respect flows when service rises. He invited local media. He invited health inspectors who had once ignored him. He invited his teenage mockers as attendees with free water coupons. The same passers-by who once sneered now held his bottle and looked ashamed. But this battle was just the middle. The next phase reveals how international investors enter the scene, and how he keeps integrity when funding makes deals dirty. Drop your location in the comments. Where are you watching this from? He stood at the edge of the dock where a foreign delegation arrived, suits, cameras, polished dealmakers. A rumor had reached them. A local water brand built from grit. Trust and grit again. They had flown in with an offer, millions in capital. But there was a catch: control, equity demands, compromised values, expansion beyond local reach, yes, but at the cost of labor standards, local pricing fairness, and community-first mission. He understood the scale. This was growth. This was the dream whispered in street corners. But he also recognized what money could destroy: intimacy, dignity, purpose. He weighed the vanishing returns of selling out against the risk of staying, local but free. The investors showed the smiling faces of water towers, warehouse expansions, branding contracts. They asked for his view of the global market. He answered, water is life. Not just big markets. My market is trust. His words created tension. Boardroom faces hardened. One investor scoffed, trust is emotional. Markets care about profit. He let that statement hang in the room. When he declined control, the delegation withdrew. He shook the lead investor's hand, voice steady. I thank you. But this water is not just a product. It's a promise. They left with nods, part respect, part doom. As the dust settled, his community watched. He returned home by foot, by street he once sweated down. Vendors called his name. The kiosk manager hugged him. Junior interns prayed he hadn't taken the money. Inside his warehouse, Maria held a meeting with all staff. They styled new bottles. Aquarise, locally rooted and introduced. Micro-savings programs for employees. Affordable meals. Clean water access for community events. They repeated aloud affirmations. We rise by lifting others. That night, a former mocker, now a blogger, wrote, Boy who sold water, now refuses millionaire deal. The piece went viral. People praised him. Others questioned if he'd made a mistake. He checked the spreadsheet a week of flat revenue. No investors, no campaign dollars. So he began fundraising ethically. A crowdfunding campaign, a partnership pitch to local cooperatives, grassroots promos on community radio. Bottles flew off shelves again, driven by loyalty, not hype. Then a crisis. A flash flood hit outlying villages. Water sources contaminated. People desperate. Government agencies slow. Aquarise mobilized. Free water delivery, filtration kiosks, mobile units. They ran on donated trucks, volunteers, late-night seal lines. Community embraced them as heroes. Salvation came through service. Respect anchored in action. The international deal might have brought skyscrapers and stock, but the choice to refuse made him a local legend. The boycott by flood survivors replaced corporate accolades. The gratitude note from a village elder echoed around town. You saved our children's lives. He looked down at the label on his hand-labeled bottle he'd designed. From street trade to source of life, he realized identity isn't born in offices. It's forged in sacrifice. He woke to the sound of his phone buzzing non-stop. His assistant's face blurred through the screen, eyes wide, voice draining. A partner in whom he invested. Trust had leaked Aquarise's trusted recipe to a competing company. A board member who signed the ethical pledges had offered proprietary branding info to overseas labs, confidential distributor lists sold, retail partners manipulated. He stared at the numbers, revenue collapsing in real time. A betrayal so deep, it was like someone poured detergent into the water-corroding trust. He raced to the warehouse, sweat stinging in his eyes to see the empty shelves. Sanitization stations empty, lab areas ransacked, bottles crushed, logos defaced, community reputation shattered. Behind him stood Maria and interns, trembling. She looked at him, silent panic, the warehouse smelling like vinegar and theft. He closed his eyes, remembers being criticized for not selling out, now betrayed by someone he trusted with the dream he'd carried on a tray. Identity isn't made from labels, it's betrayed by disloyalty, respect demanded by truth. Karma never sleeps. He collapsed into the nearest chair, heart heavy. This betrayal wasn't just mechanical sabotage, it was moral erosion. He called a crisis meeting, faculty hushed. He refused anger. He refused vengeance. He spoke in steady, classless words. This isn't just about stolen recipes. It's about stolen values. If we compromise who we are for money, we've lost even before we win. He requested full transparency, audit logs from distributors, contract copies, whistleblower statements. He set deadlines. He spoke of justice not via lawyers but via community boards. He asked for forgiveness from staff. He asked for patience from customers. Days passed. Evidence cascaded. Partner resignations. Public apologies. A donor pulled out. He lost credit lines. They stocked emergency reserves. The retail partner network turned conservative. Some stores stopped carrying Aquarise. Many employees feared job loss. Then arrived the pivotal moment. The competitor who received leaked. Recipe called a press conference accusing Aquarise of unethical labor practices. Thought they'd finish the story. But instead of denial, he tweeted a video featuring Maria collecting inventory, employees packing bottles, interns discussing leaks. He let transparency expose betrayal. The market shifted. Consumers rallied, not out of hype, but out of conviction. Sales rose again, not to previous scale, but sustained. Trust replaced ad spend. Maria spoke at school functions. Henry led accountability committees. Interns who once mocked spreadsheets now ran them. He didn't crush the betrayer. Instead, he created a restorative panel. Offer public apology, return of stolen assets, admission in media, community service backup days, pledge to avoid future leaks. It was not revenge. It was integrity. In facing betrayal, he reaffirmed identity. In choosing transparency over silence, he reclaimed respect. If you're tuning in now, take a moment to drop your location in the comments, whether you're in New York, Nairobi, or anywhere on the globe. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. He collapsed into the nearest chair, heart heavy. This betrayal wasn't just mechanical sabotage, it was moral erosion. He called a crisis meeting, faculty hushed. He refused anger. He refused vengeance. He spoke in steady, classless words. This isn't just about stolen recipes. It's about stolen values. If we compromise who we are for money, we've lost even before we win. He requested full transparency, audit logs from distributors, contract copies, whistleblower statements. He set deadlines. He spoke of justice not via lawyers but via community boards. He asked for forgiveness from staff. He asked for patience from customers. Days passed. Evidence cascaded. Partner resignations. Public apologies. A donor pulled out. He lost credit lines. They stocked emergency reserves. The retail partner network turned conservative. Some stores stopped carrying Aquarise. Many employees feared job loss. Then arrived the pivotal moment. The competitor who received leaked. Recipe called a press conference accusing Aquarise of unethical labor practices. Thought they'd finish the story. But instead of denial, he tweeted a video featuring Maria collecting inventory, employees packing bottles, interns discussing leaks. He let transparency expose betrayal. The market shifted. Consumers rallied, not out of hype, but out of conviction. Sales rose again, not to previous scale but sustained. Trust replaced ad spend. Maria spoke at school functions. Henry led accountability committees. Interns who once mocked spreadsheets now ran them. He didn't crush the betrayer. Instead, he created a restorative panel. Offer public apology, return of stolen assets, admission in media, community service backup days, pledge to avoid future leaks. It was not revenge. It was integrity. In facing betrayal, he reaffirmed identity. In choosing transparency over silence, he reclaimed respect. If you're tuning in now, take a moment to drop your location in the comments, whether you're in New York, Nairobi, or anywhere on the globe. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. He stood in the warehouse at dawn, the place that had become his cradle of hope and just days ago, nearly the tomb of his dream. Shelves were restocked. The bottling line hummed. The air smelled of chlorine and possibility again. He ran his fingers across a cold glass bottle labeled Aqua Rise, inscribed with the tagline, "Purity earned, trust delivered." A knock on the door. Maria entered unannounced. She looked strong, determined. Stolen lines of behavior still haunted her eyes, but sparkling beneath hope. Today was the day. The public reconciliation with the betrayer, the board member who stole proprietary data, a live event in the community center, not a press conference, an open forum, community members invited, employees, vendors, even a few former mockers. Now curious, where would truth stand? He stood at the podium. Microphone hum. Lights off center. People seated in folding chairs, janitors, interns, accountants, security staff, vendors' faces once overlooked now front row. He pulled out the resignation letter of the betraying partner. A tear crossed his face. Not shame, not bitterness, but sorrow for how far they'd drifted from values. He took a deep breath. My mistake, he said, was trusting someone's word over their character. My fear was compensation. My recovery is compassion. He handed the stage to the betrayer, a resignation speech. Public apology, promises of restitution, offering days of service at the warehouse packing water, cleaning stations helping staff. People listened. Some nodded. Some wiped tears. Some hesitated. Then they broke into applause, not for theatrics, but for accountability solidified. He closed. No less important is the washing line. Because water cleans not just bottles, but values. This company was started on a street corner with cups. Now it rises on a foundation of respect. They lined up outside the new wing of the Aqua Rise plant children, young adults, students from the same schools that had once jeered at him on his water-selling route. Now they held notebooks and wore ID tags labeled Youth Internship Program. He greeted each one. A firm handshake, a kind smile, no speech, just presence. That was enough. Inside, the plant buzzed with activity. Not just machines anymore, ideas. A new tech room where students would learn. Water purification science, a mini lab. A digital screen showing the journey. From street vendor with a bucket to founder of the region's fastest growing bottled water brand. But there was one room he visited every day alone. A tiny glass office tucked between the warehouse and the staff lounge. Inside, framed in modest wood, sat the photo of his mother. The woman who believed in him when all he carried was a jerry can and a torn t-shirt. Beneath the photo, the first 500 naira note he earned. And beside it, the paper cup she once gave him for free. When he was thirsty as a boy before he started selling water, he sat quietly. Remembered the pain, not to relive it, but to respect it. Because pain had built discipline, discipline had built trust, and trust had built Aqua Rise. Just then his assistant knocked gently. "They've arrived," she whispered. He stood up slowly. Today wasn't about business. It was something more emotional than any funding round. It was the reunion day. A closed-door conversation with 3 people who had played a silent but sharp role in his journey. The classmate who once recorded him selling sachet water and uploaded it to social media with mocking music. the school principal who had refused to let him sit for an exam because he missed fees, and the bus driver who once drove off with his water tray, leaving him to chase his only livelihood down a muddy road, tears and all. They walked in awkward, unsure, groan. He welcomed them with bottles of Zayne Aqua. Cold, clean, labeled with their names and the phrase, "Everyone deserves a second chance." They didn't speak at first, but eyes met, and in silence, stories poured heavier than words. "Why did you invite us?" the old principal finally asked, breaking the stillness. He replied gently, "Because if you hadn't stopped me then, I wouldn't have started this now. My dream wasn't to be angry. It was to be free." The classmate wiped his face. "I destroyed your dignity online, and now here you are employing my little cousin." The bus driver sighed. "I still remember your face as you ran barefoot behind my bus. I didn't know I was driving away with your future." He smiled. "You weren't. You were pushing me toward it." There were no cameras, no PR team, just 4 chairs, and a lesson in grace. Before they left, he handed each of them something else, a sealed letter. In it, free scholarships for their children to attend the Aquarise youth program. No condition, no expiry date, just love given where hate once lingered. Next, global investor steps in, a betrayal brews beneath the surface again. And a decision must be made that will define not just the business, but the man behind the brand. The day the email came, he didn't check it immediately. It was buried among newsletters, supplier alerts, payment confirmations. But something about the subject line made him pause. Invitation to Aqua World, global private pitch session. He clicked it. Read it again, then again. His eyes didn't blink. His hand didn't move. He sat still, in disbelief. The world's largest water conglomerate was inviting him to present his company at their exclusive accelerator for emerging brands. Just 10 brands were selected across the globe. One from Africa, his Aquarise. He forwarded the email to his head of operations with 2 words. "Let's prepare." The days that followed were nothing short of war. Presentation decks, legal reviews, lab inspections, international compliance audits, investors asking for clarity, banks asking for updated statements, staff working late nights, machines running non-stop. The pitch was in 3 weeks, virtual, but he would present it live. His voice coach told him, "Don't sell water, sell your story." He practiced in the mirror, over and over, but something strange began to happen. 2 days to the pitch, one of his senior team members, someone he had mentored from scratch, who once slept in his shop during the startup days, requested a private meeting. At first he thought it was a thank you conversation, but the man looked uneasy, sweaty, and his first words shattered everything. "I've been feeding your competitors information." Silence, dead silence. "I didn't do it out of hate. I did it out of fear. They promised me a position. They said you'd never make it this far, and I believed them." He didn't shout. He didn't flinch. He just sat there, jaw tight, breathing even, mind racing. Then the man continued. "They know about your weak supply link in the north. They're about to undercut your major distribution deal. They plan to present at Aqua World under a similar name, Hydra-Rise. They copied everything." He stood up, walked to the window, looked out, then turned slowly. "You have 2 choices," he said, voice calm but cutting. "Stay and fix the betrayal you planted, or walk out and carry it forever." The man fell silent. "I'll stay," he whispered. "No," he replied. "You'll rebuild what you broke, but not in my office." That night he worked alone, rewriting the pitch, changing strategies, building defenses, calling every partner he could trust. By dawn, the plan had changed. He wouldn't pitch growth. He would pitch resilience. He wouldn't present Aquarise as a brand. He would present it as a belief that even betrayal can't drown someone who was once mocked for selling water. The pitch day arrived. Virtual room, global audience, Faces from over 20 countries. His name was announced. He began not with a statistic, not with a sales figure, but with a memory. I was 13, selling water sachets in traffic. A man poured his leftover juice on me and laughed. That day, I learned two things. 1, thirst is a need. 2, dignity should never depend on money. The room went quiet. Screens leaned forward. He shared how Aquarise was not just cleaning water, but cleaning the mindset around poverty. That his plant employed not just workers, but dreamers. That his company built bottled hope in a country where young people were taught that dreams expire after high school. By the time he finished, no one clapped because everyone was still speechless. Then came the scores. 9 out of 10 judges gave him a pass. But the 10th, a senior Aqua World exec from Germany, paused, looked up. I want to visit your plant in Nigeria, not because I doubt your pitch, but because I want to feel the air where your company breathes. He smiled. Come thirsty, he replied. We serve more than water. Next, the visit begins. But something unexpected happens. Someone tries to sabotage the facility days before the global executive lands. Loyalty will be tested, a fire will break out, and a decision must be made that could cost him the biggest opportunity of his life. Comment where you're watching from. What would you do if someone close to you betrayed your dream? Subscribe to stay with the story. One more part to go. The day before the visit, everything was in place. The security team had doubled. The production line had been cleaned to a shine. The top floor office was repainted. Air conditioners checked. Staff briefed. Bottles labeled perfectly. Even the uniforms were freshly laundered. Every corner of Aquarise was ready to welcome the foreign executive who had asked not just to see numbers, but to breathe the air where dreams were bottled. But at 11:36 p.m. that night, a silent alarm went off. At first it was dismissed as a glitch, until the second alarm triggered. Then the third. The head of security raced to the surveillance room. What they saw made their heart drop. A masked figure had broken into the purification wing. A large canister of unknown chemicals was being poured into one of the water intakes. Sabotage. Intentional. Timed. Calculated. Aimed to poison the heart of the operation. Just hours before the most important visit of their entire journey. The security team acted fast. The intruder was caught. But when the mask came off, nobody could breathe. It was someone they all knew. Not a stranger. Not a thief. A former employee. One of the earliest. A man who had once shared Gary with the founder in the back of the old container office, when the company was nothing more than hope and borrowed machines. He sat on the floor, eyes red. No resistance, no denial, just silence. When asked why, his voice cracked. Because it should have been me. I was here first. I brought the first truck. I fixed the first pipes. I watched others rise while I stayed flat. I wanted him to fail for once. Just once. The founder said nothing. Just stared. Not in anger, but in pain, because this was no longer sabotage. This was heartbreak. This was what betrayal felt like when it wore a familiar face. The police were called, but as they reached the gate, the founder raised his hand. Wait, he said. Don't arrest him. Let him go. The team gasped. He just tried to destroy everything, someone whispered. Let him go, the founder repeated. He already destroyed himself. Then he turned to the man. Leave this compound and don't come back. Not because I hate you, but because I loved you too much to ever see you like this again. By morning, the purification wing was sanitized. Water tests passed. The contaminated tanks were discarded. New stock was bottled. He didn't sleep. He didn't blink. He just paced the corridor all night, repeating one thing to himself. This company is not water. This company is trust. At 8 a.m. sharp, the executive arrived. Blonde hair, sharp suit, calm eyes. She didn't come alone. She came with a documentary crew. She said, "We want to document the rise of African-born brands that are disrupting the water space." His heart sank. Today, nothing could go wrong. But just before the tour started, the main conveyor belt jammed. A faulty bolt. Minor, but at that moment disastrous. The cameras were rolling. The executive was watching. Staff panicked. Someone began whispering to cut the filming. But the founder raised his hand. "Let it roll," he said. "Let them see who we are, even when things break." Then he walked over, took off his jacket, rolled up his sleeves, opened the belt casing, found the fault, fixed it himself. Within 3 minutes, the line resumed. The bottles moved. The sealing began. The cameras never blinked, and neither did the executive. She pulled him aside. "You just sold me without speaking," she said. "You lead like someone who has lost everything before. And that's the kind of founder AquaWorld invests in." Then she paused. "But I need to know." "What drives you?" He took a breath. Thought of the road, the boys who mocked him in traffic. But he stopped. Walked to Maria, Henry, Priya, the original interns. Delivered bottles to each of them personally, saying simply, "This bottle, labeled for launch in Berlin, was first filled with hope here, with you." Tears glistened in their eyes. Because this wasn't a founder speech. It was gratitude in human form. He then walked outside, into the street, where his mother once stood, sleeves rolled, selling water to students. He squeezed the jug, felt the edges, felt the future it carried. He didn't climb in a company car. He walked barefoot past the community kiosk that still offered free water, past the streets where people once sneered. People nodded as he passed. They recognized the man, but more than that, they recognized who he carried. They saw identity restored. At the edge of the street, he stopped. A crowd gathered. Students, vendors, mothers, children. He stood before them. No microphone, no presentation. He raised the jug and said, "This jug cost nothing, but it taught everything: respect, dignity, grit. I built a company on it, but what matters most is who you carry with you in your purpose." They cheered, soft, strong. Then he added, "Never forget where you came from, and always bottle your legacy." And as he walked away, with the crowd behind him cheering, the jug in hand, steps filled with humility, it felt like more than a finale. It felt like home. Moral of the story: respect begins with memory. Identity isn't traced by status but by roots. Karma doesn't elevate the loudest, it uplifts the steadfast. Drop your location in the comments. Tell us, what relic from your past reminds you why you started? Subscribe for more real, raw, inspiring stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things.